All right, in this week's episode, I'm going to answer one of your questions. And if you want to drop a question for a later podcast, feel free to in the show notes below. So this question is from Kirk, and he had a nice statement slash question on the end. So he said, you're a CPA, a national best-selling author, you own your own business, you're financially free, and you're donating over $1 million to Dravet syndrome. What is your next big thing to accomplish? Made me think. It was a good question. And I'm going to break this down because I think I had an epiphany last night. And I want to share this insight that I had with you. So I see a lot of parallels in life in different areas, and it's always good to see a connection. And I saw one of those last night. And so, right now, currently, the way we sit today with my wife and I, we live the life we want to live. We're pretty simple, pretty basic. We hit financial freedom, but we don't live an extravagant life. We don't travel across the world in private jets. We don't do any of that stuff. We don't need the latest, greatest car, house, whatever the case is. We have nice house, nice car, whatever. But it's not like a big pressing priority. We want to make sure my daughter's health's good, that we retain the financial freedom status that we have, and we don't ever have to go work because we just buy outlandish stuff. And like that's more our push and our drive. And then I think a big piece is the impact that we're making with Dravet syndrome. And I've always been a big goal setter. And even my whiteboard behind me has been one of my driving forces. Anything that goes up in that whiteboard, man, it gets done. And last night, I was thinking about this, and I quit my goals. And that's not me. And that's not what let me explain this, because this is a very, very is much deeper thing than just saying I quit my goals. I did not give up. Let me preface this by not saying I did not give up. I did not change what I'm doing, but I changed the way I'm looking at things. And so I drew a few parallels from the past, and I think they're very relevant to a lot of people, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate with this. And so specifically, I lead with intentionality with everything I do. I'm very proactive. I'm very communicative. I like to get things done, to say the least. So I don't have inherent problems with like accomplishing a goal. If I want to set a goal, I'll just do it. Like it's just a matter of time. And so like I'm never worried about like setting a goal and actually hitting that goal. I haven't. However, the way I've operated, the way I've seen that goal has changed a little bit. And so I'll explain with my CPA test, because Kirk started off by saying you're a CPA. And I remember that CPA experience. It was my first real, I would say, adulthood test right out of school. And I was studying so hard. For anyone that takes a CPA, like to understand the level of study that goes into one of these tests, like it could take a month to study for one test, to give you perspective, on a 40-hour week. So you're studying a lot. And so I graduated December, I forget when it was, maybe 2014. And so January 2015, I started that test, and I started at Deloitte in September. So I had this 8-month gap of like gung ho, let's get the CPA test done within that 8-month window. There's 4 tests. And as long as you can do that, it'd be great. You could start your career as a CPA. And so I started down this path in December or in January. And so I started taking the study material, which was Becker at the time. And I remember that first month, it was like a lot of study, but I was like, oh, I get this. Like I can memorize anything anywhere. My wife would quiz me at the time. She was not even fiance actually at the time when she was quizzing me, soon after my fiance, but at the time she was my girlfriend. And so she would quiz me, and I could literally recite that book. The audit, I took audit the very first of the 4 tests. And it was in the back of my head. Like I knew every little page, what it looked like. I have like a visual memory, like I can see everything. So I was like, oh, this test is going to be so easy. I walk into the test, and I remember thinking it was easy. I walked out, I was like, oh, that's not too bad. We went to one of those testing centers in Northern Kentucky, and I was like, oh, that was not too bad. And so it takes a while to get your test results back. I think it would take like 2 or 3 weeks based on your testing window. And I remember opening the test results, not thinking much of it, and you need a 75 to pass. And I saw a 53. And that rocked my world. I was kind of shocked. I was kind of in awe. I was like, wow, like I don't know what to think. I remember walking downstairs and thinking like, wow, if I thought that was easy and I just failed by like 23 points just to like pass, like failed miserably, not like just like I got a 70. Like, there's that website called Another 71. All my CPAs know that, another71.com. It wasn't like that. Like, I got crushed. And it was like a pretty defeating loss. And so I don't stew upon losses too long. That doesn't really affect me. Like, it was in the moment, it was pretty big, but like I was like, okay, what's next? Like, let's go retake this test. I don't get defeated easy at all. It's hard to knock me down, keep me down. In fact, you won't. And so for me, I was just like, okay, that sucked, but now I got to figure out how to fix this. And so I kept doing this process and I kept failing. Like, I kept failing all the different tests. It was a horrendous experience. I did pass one of them in that 8-month window. I only had one done in 8 months and I failed probably 4 of them. There are 3 of them at least. And I get to work and I see all my friends at work at Deloitte, they're unassigned. So they weren't on a client basically. So they're sitting in the office and they're watching Netflix. So they all passed their test. And in the summer before they started, and I'm sitting there struggling. I'm like, man, they're so lucky. Like, I kept thinking that. It's like, what do they know that I don't know? I was like, I know everything about this test. And I would even ask them questions they wouldn't even know the answers to. And I would know them, but I wouldn't pass the test. And I was like, something isn't adding up. And it frustrated me beyond belief because, again, it wasn't something that I never struggled with school necessarily if I tried. Like, it just never came hard to me if I tried. And I was trying and I kept failing. And it was my first big test and at Deloitte, and I felt almost in a scarcity mindset to be able to pass at that point in time. And eventually there was this moment where I actually got pissed off I kept failing. I was so annoyed. I was like, you know what, F it. I'm going to go into that test. I'm not going to study actually at all. And I didn't study. In that first test that I did that with that mentality, not the F it mentality of like totally F it, but like F it knowing that I was prepared, knowing that I didn't need to memorize, but I need to understand. I need to learn. And all of a sudden I passed. And that was like a defining moment. I remember like that first test. I'm like, okay, let's do this again. So the other 3 I did it and I literally passed all 3, I think, right after that. I don't think I failed another one with that same mentality. And it was literally mind-boggling. I was like, okay, I literally am not trying as hard and I'm getting better results. And I've always been somebody that had to try hard. I believe that I at least did. Coming from my gym teacher at 5 years old, telling me I had no talent, and telling my dad and my mom that. And so I always felt like I had to try hard. School, sports, whatever the case is. Decent athlete, decent school. But I always felt like I had to work hard. And I've felt like that with business recently. And specifically my goals I've set. So we set a goal to hit like $1 million Gervais donation, and we'll hit that. And it's not that it's not a goal per se, but it's the way I'm looking at it. And so business, we've hit massive milestones. This past month, I didn't even know that's possible in my life. Like, what we've done has been sensational. But I've gotten a really tight grip on everything, almost too controlling and too scarcity mindset versus trusting myself. And I think that is the big difference in this goal setting mindset is when I'm setting these goals, there's nothing inherently wrong with setting a goal. Like, that's driven me up to this point. It's always worked. I've always hit everything I've wanted. But when I set those, it's like a scarcity mindset to get to that goal, and everything else becomes like non-existent, and I'm running on this treadmill consistently. And then I hit that goal, and there's a moving goalpost. And I hit another goal, and there's a moving goalpost. So back to Kirk's question, he said, you're a CPA, you're a national bestseller, you own your own business, you're financially free, you're donating $1 million to Dravet syndrome. What else do you want to accomplish? And I literally thought for a second, I was like, man, that's like literally, not to toot my own horn, but that's a resume that a lot of people would dream about. Like, that wouldn't even be majority will never see any of that. And whether they try or not. And so, like, to be grateful in this position is amazing. But then also to realize that, like, if I keep setting these goals and I keep stressing myself out and I keep thinking from a scarcity mindset, I'm not going to operate as good as if I just said, I trust myself, I trust my innate skills, trust my network, I live in a place of abundance versus a scarcity mindset, and I know I'll hit the goals. Like, there's no doubt in my mind I'll hit the goals because the intentionality is still there. But to sit there and say, I'm going to do this by this date at this time and like have this like box around every goal I have, gives me the wrong mindset and the wrong framing per se. Not the wrong mindset, but the wrong framing. Again, goals are not bad, but the wrong framing around these goals to where you're driven by the wrong things. And to see it reverse and say, okay, I'm still going to hit those, but I'm not going to say I'm going to do it by this date. I'm going to do it by January 20th, 2024, 2025, 2026. I'm going to end that today. So I'm going to quit my goals. I'm literally going to say, okay, I want to generally do that. But I know, first of all, you got to know yourself. So if you know your goal, if you know what you're trying to accomplish, like, it's going to be easy to hit. Because if you know yourself, you're naturally driven, you're naturally inclined to do that. You're going to do it whether you like put a box around it or not, because that's all you can think about. And so that's me. That's who I am. And so I know I can trust myself to get there without stressing myself out to get there. And I think that's going to be a big difference. And similarly to the CPA experience, when I tried really hard, almost too hard, I actually failed. I actually didn't do as well. I actually drove people away, but drove people away because I was so intense about hitting that specific goal that everything else became like a game. And so with my business, we've hit milestone, like literally we just hit a record milestone this past month, and I realized I became more intense. And at what point do I 2x that and then become more intense, 2x more intensity, and then my team hates me? Like, you don't want to live like that. And so like what I'm going to do today is officially quit the goals, the framing in which I've always held goals. General idea, general North Star, general, and people might argue the SMART goal framework versus the generality, but if you trust yourself enough and you don't operate from a scarcity mindset, I believe that if you know yourself and you know where you're trying to get to, you will get there. And so I really took a hard look last night, and of course it was like a 2 a.m. thought, but then I saw this question come through, and it really like solidified what I was trying to get at. It also brought a parallel from a previous life with my CPA, and it made me think like, damn, like that's exactly what it's the same thing. It's like I've always tried almost too hard to get worse results, when in fact I could try less hard. Well, I wouldn't say try less hard, but enjoy myself more to hit the same goal. And in fact, you probably hit more because you attract the right stuff and you don't operate from a scarcity mindset. And I think that's a big shift. And if you operate and change that mindset and that framing, you change the way you operate and you change the way you hit those goals. And so that is really what I wanted to break down. Is like, that's a big mind twister probably today, but it's what I'm going to do. And I challenge you to think and change the way you think about your goals, because a lot of times we think, I want to hit 1 million. I want to hit 2.5 million. I want to hit 4, 5, 10, whatever million you want to hit. But it's because you have a scarcity mindset to hit that number, because you need it. Because if you don't, what happens? Versus saying, oh, I trust myself. Something goes wrong, something goes south, it's okay. I'll navigate the waters when the time comes. And I'll be able to have a general plan, but I know that things aren't going to be perfect, and things are going to shift and change, and I know I'll shift with it because I have the confidence. And that shift is masterful. And if you can get to that level, you will operate at a different level. And I think that right now, a lot of people need to hear. So with that being said, guys, I will see you next Monday, and I hope that's very helpful and it derives from the point of the framing per se of goal setting versus saying versus that scarcity mindset. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys soon.
You've been listening to Money on My Mind with your host, Brendan Schlagbaum. If you found value in today's discussion, share it with someone who could benefit from it too. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, so you never miss a money mastery tip. Until next time, stay passionate about your financial journey and keep taking bold steps towards your money goals.